Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. Wanted to welcome you to the 2020 Stand Down Kickoff. We appreciate all of you that have taken the time to join the kickoff this year, which we'll be doing virtually due to the COVID pandemic. I'm Commander Elizabeth Garza from the NIOSH Office of Construction Safety and Health, and I'll be serving as the moderator for today's call. Today, we're going to hear from the main campaign and stand down partners, OSHA, NIOSH, and CPWR. At the end of the presentations, we'll have some time for Q&A. We received some questions in advance during the registration, and we'll try to take as many of those as well as some live questions. Now, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our speakers today. We're fortunate to have some opening remarks from Loren Sweatt, Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of Labor for Occupational Safety and Health at OSHA, and Dr. Howard, the Director of the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. I'd like to pass it now to Assistant Secretary Sweatt. Thank you for joining us today. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Commander. I just want to thank everyone for partnering with OSHA for this year's Fall Stand Down. I'm very pleased to join NIOSH and Dr. Howard for today's opening webinar. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of you for your commitment to worker safety and for being an invaluable partner in this year's 7th Annual National Stand Down to prevent falls in construction. OSHA is proud to continue to partner with so many leading organizations with this effort. The Stand Down continues to work to raise awareness to fall hazards and reinforce proven safe work practices that help to prevent fall fatalities and injuries. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, OSHA is encouraging employers to promote fall safety virtually or while employing social distancing practices among small groups. In 2018, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported fewer workers died from falls in construction and in all industries than in 2017. However, despite our collective efforts, falls once again remains the leading cause of worker death, and all of these fatalities are preventable. The Stand Down is an opportunity for employers to have a conversation with workers about job hazards, protective methods, and companies' safety policies, goals, and expectations. The Stand Down should also be seen as an opportunity for workers to talk with management about hazards they see at work. As always, participation in this effort is not limited to the construction industry, and no business is too small to participate. In fact, many non-construction employers have held stand-downs, and nearly half of the events reported were events with less than 25 employees. The support from our partners is key to a successful stand-down. Each year, OSHA works with state plans, state consultation programs, trade associations, unions, worker advocacy organizations, companies, safety equipment managers, construction material suppliers, government agencies, and many other groups. To be successful, we'll need your help once again. OSHA has many resources to support successful stand-down events. Everyone can follow OSHA on Twitter at OSHA_DOL and share a message about fall prevention with hashtag #StandDown4Safety, 4 as the number. Describe your stand-down success by emailing us at oshastanddown@dol.gov. The goal of the stand-down is to help ensure that every worker returns home safely at the end of each workday. Please remember to wash your hands, continue the use of social distancing, and wear a face covering. Visit OSHA.gov for more information on how to stay safe during the COVID-19 pandemic. And thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you, Assistant Secretary Sweatt, for your opening remarks. I'll now pass it to Dr. Howard. We're happy to have you here, sir.
Well, thank you, Commander Garza. And on behalf of everyone at NIOSH, welcome to the 2020 National Safety Stand Down. It's a pleasure to be here with Loren Sweatt from OSHA and Chris Trahan from CPWR. As we all know, falls are the leading cause of death among construction workers, accounting for about 1 out of 3 construction fatalities. Most affected by falls are those in small businesses, residential workers, roofers, Latinx workers, and older workers. But construction falls are preventable. And certainly, we thank you for participating in this year's safety stand down. I hope that you can join us and continue the momentum that we've built up since 2012, when we first started the national campaign to prevent falls in construction. And we certainly hope that you join us in getting involved in this year's national campaign to prevent falls in construction and the National Safety Stand Down. Please join or host a virtual, physically distant stand down and contribute to what has become an increasingly successful effort to prevent falls in construction. So thank you all for joining us today. I want to thank OSHA and CPWR. I want to thank all of you for all that you do to keep workers safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Howard. At this point, we're going to move into our panel presentations, where each organization will share more about the fall-related fatalities and how the fall prevention campaign and the safety stand down aim to reduce them. We're going to start with Dr. Scott Earnest, the Director for the NIOSH Office of Construction Safety and Health. We'll then move to Scott Ketcham, the Director of OSHA's Directorate of Construction. And we'll close out with Chris Trahan Cain, the Executive Director of CPWR. I'll now pass it to Dr. Earnest to get us started.
Thank you, Commander Garza. It's great to be with you today as we kick off the National Stand Down to Prevent Falls in Construction. Again, as was said, we're doing this virtually, in part because of the pandemic and to prevent the spread. NIOSH, OSHA, and CPWR, the National Construction Center, launched the campaign in 2012 and began the stand down in 2014. And through this effort, we encourage everyone in the construction industry to work safely and to use the right equipment to prevent falls from elevation. The campaign was initially developed through the NORA Construction Sector Council. The campaign leaders, again, are NIOSH, OSHA, and CPWR. The campaign is based upon evidence of what is most effective. And evaluation is a critical component of the success of the campaign. I also wanted to mention that the NORA logo is included on this slide because the NORA Sector Council developed a strategic plan that included this as a key goal. So why are we looking at falls? Why are falls so important? Well, they're the leading cause of death in construction, as was said, is accounting for 1/3 of the job-related injuries in the industry. Each year, there are hundreds of construction workers who are killed and over 10,000 that are seriously injured by falls. In 2018, there were 340 fall fatalities out of 1,038 total fatalities in the construction industry. And many of these fatalities were indeed preventable. Now, the next few slides are data from the CPWR Data Center. This chart shows the annual fatalities in construction due to all causes. It goes from 2003 to 2017. Falls are in red at the bottom and represent about 1/3 of all the construction fatalities in any given year. Blue represents the fatalities from all other causes. As you can see in the middle, in the 2010-2011 timeframe, there was a dip which corresponds with the economic recession. On the next slide, we have a pie chart. And this pie chart shows fatal falls to a lower level in construction by the primary source. And so the 3 greatest sources of falls include roofs, ladders, and scaffolds, in that order. Falls from roof accounted for about 32% of the total. Falls from ladder, 24%. And then following that is falls from scaffold at 15%. So if you add up those 3 sources, that represents about 71% of the sources of falls in fatal falls in the construction industry. On the next slide, it shows a number of fatal falls broken down by construction subsector. And this is data from 2011 to 2017. So the subsectors that are most affected include roofing contractors, residential construction, and painting at 512 fatalities, 365 fatalities, and 182. So if you look at those numbers, roofing and residential are really much higher than the numbers near the bottom. And the other thing I wanted to point out, if you add up the top 3, roofing contractors, residential, and painting and wall covering, that's actually a greater number of fatalities than the bottom 10 on this chart. So those are 3 biggies that we really need to be concerned about. Next slide. This slide shows the impact of fall height on fatalities. And as you can see, the 2 heights with the greatest number of fatalities are falls from 11 to 15 feet and falls from over 30 feet. But I also wanted to point out that even if you're not very high off the ground, it is still possible to die from a fall. So as you can see, there were 78 fatalities from falls that were 5 feet or less off the ground. And then the last data slide I wanted to point out shows data on the construction fatality rates between 2003 and 2016. And this is broken down by the size of the firm. The good news is that the rates have fallen for firms that have more than 20 employees. If you could go to the next slide, please. So again, the medium and the larger firms are in blue. And you can see there's a bit of a downward trend. On the left-hand side, it has 12 and 10.4 for the rate, and it drops down to 7.5 or 6.3 in the 2016 timeframe. The problem is the red line. That represents your small employers. And as you can see, there's a significant increase. It's been trending upward since 2008. The other thing I wanted to point out is if you look at the data for 2016 on the far right-hand column, the fatality rates for small firms are 3 times higher than medium or large firms. So that's a big issue that we really need to continue to work on. Next slide. I just wanted to kind of finish things up. I wanted to mention what the messages of the campaign is, and the message is to plan, provide, and train. Plan ahead to get the job done safely, provide the right equipment, and then also train everyone to use the equipment safely. Next slide, please. All 3 agencies, OSHA, CPWR, and NIOSH, have a falls campaign website, and each of these websites are linked. This slide shows the NIOSH campaign website. And on this website, we highlight webinars, videos, infographics, apps that have been developed, the FACE program, which does our fatality investigations, an aerial lift simulator, and also fact sheets we've developed about falls and preventing falls. Next slide. This slide shows some of the videos. We've got a number of short 5-minute videos that can be watched about how to conduct a stand down, how to prevent falls. There's lots of really good information on the NIOSH website that you can share with your workers about falls and fall prevention. Next slide. The other thing I wanted to briefly mention is that each year NIOSH and CPWR partner to develop infographics that are available in both English and Spanish. Again, the construction industry, there's over 30% of the industry is Hispanic, so there's a lot of Spanish-speaking workers. The NIOSH-led infographics provide basic data on falls in construction, and 2 of the infographics are shown on this particular slide. It gets into information about the total number of falls that occurred in a year, the impact of falls on older workers, and also the impact on immigrant workers. And I also wanted to mention that these infographics are available and can be downloaded as PDFs or JPEGs to be used on social media, to be used in presentations, and also in print material. Next, I wanted to just briefly mention the NIOSH Science blog. This is a way that our office communicates frequently about important events. And I wanted to point out that in this science blog focused on data between 2016 and 2018, and there was some really good news. And that news is that the total number of falls between 2016 and 2018 fell from 372 to 321. And you can see that in the bar chart on the bottom right corner. The other thing I wanted to point out, which is even probably more important than the total number of fatal falls, is the rate of fatal falls. And the thing that's interesting is we not only had a drop during those years in the total number, but the rate fell as well. And that was when the number of workers, number of construction workers in the industry was increasing. So there was a significant drop off during that time frame. So that's really good news. And then the last thing I wanted to say is I just wanted to mention again how important outreach is to the Hispanic community, because there's so many Hispanic workers in the construction industry. And they have a disproportionate risk that needs to be addressed. And so we're working to do this. And some of the partners that we've worked with to help Hispanic construction workers and to prevent injuries in this population include Alianza America, as well as the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much.
So I'll pick up from here. This is Scott Ketcham. I'm the Director of Construction for OSHA's Directorate of Construction. First of all, I want to thank all of our panel members for kicking this off with us today. We have had great work in moving forward with this fall stand down and as part of the fall prevention campaign. Great partnerships with NIOSH and CPWR, and thank you very much for what we're doing. I'd also like to take a moment to thank you, all the people that took time out of your day today to participate in this important meeting about fall stand downs and why it's important. Without you, we couldn't make this happen. So I wanted to start off by thanking you also for what you do every day to protect workers. It's vitally important, and thank you for attending this, this webinar. So as you know, the poster's been out for a while. The only thing that I wanted to indicate on this slide that I saw someone asked in chat already is the hashtag stand down, the #4 safety. If you're having a stand down this week, or if you want to tweet something out in regards to the fall stand down, please use that hashtag on it. We're following it, and it's a way for us to measure your successes and see how we can improve the stand down. And you're going to find that as a theme throughout my presentation here. We want to hear from you. We want to improve the stand down and make it fit for everyone so that we're totally inclusive, and not only inclusive, we make it work and get better year by year by year. Okay, this is the 7th annual National Stand Down, and this is the kickoff. And we all know that the goal is to ensure that workers return home every day. And so as part of this, as you're going to find as a theme throughout all 3 of our partnerships here, is that this is the stand down week. However, you need to do this all the time. This is a goal of all of us to ensure that we increase awareness of fall hazards. We share information on how to prevent injuries and fatalities related to falls, and with the end goal of eliminating falls in the workplace. We're all in this together. And so the one thing that I want to say in reference to this slide is it's one day today, or 1 hour right now, but this is a 365-day-a-year goal for us to make sure that we prevent falls and keep everyone working safely. This year is a little bit different due to the global pandemic going on right now. And so what we're doing is we're trying to use as many tools as we can to have virtual or small group stand downs. And so this right here is a way that we can safely get the message out to large groups of people without having large groups of people all congregating together. So we're asking you this week, throughout the rest of the week, in your stand downs, to try to do it emphasizing social distancing or doing it virtually. It's important that we do this safely in the environment we're working in right now. A little bit of, I know this may seem a little bit small, but some of the information that we've got back from participants is how many stand downs you had in your state. And this infographic here shows by state the top number, how many stand down events were registered with OSHA, where you asked for a certificate, and the bottom number indicates how many employees actually participated. So it showed us some strategic ideas of where we could gain opportunities, areas that we needed to focus on. And this is something for your help as well, as you're looking at areas that you may want to look at if you're in certain states, and this may be helpful to you. We're hopeful that it is. Now, as far as the top construction violations or conditions that OSHA has cited, these are the top 10, and you can see that there are 6 items on this. Number 1, fall protection; 2, scaffolding; 3, ladders; 4, fall protection training; and 9, aerial lifts; and 10, fall protection systems, criteria, and practices. Out of the top 10 conditions that OSHA cites in a year, these 6 items have a fall hazard identified with them. And it's something that we have found to be prevalent in our top 10, and it's certainly something that we focus on. Number 8 is specific excavation requirements. I would be remiss, we're here for the fall stand down, but the agency has a goal to reduce excavation hazards in the workplace. And so number 8 is specific excavation requirements, which we've focused on very highly in this last year as well. The Construction Focus 4 has been around for over a decade within OSHA. If you have not been to our webpage to look at this, this is free and open information that you can share. Toolbox talks are included in it, training in the box for you that you can take right off our website and put to action with your staff. And what it does is it focuses on the 4 main causal events that lead to fatalities in the construction industry. And you can see that almost over 50% of these incidents on here, these 4 conditions lead to over 50% of the fatalities in construction. And you can see the number 1 there at 33.5% is falls based on the 2018 BLS data. And so it's something that we're focusing on, but I wanted to point out that if you go to our website or you just Google OSHA Focus 4, it'll take you to our webpage, and there's some great information there as well that will help you do toolbox talks and right out of the box type safety training. Now, breaking down the BLS data, I want you to look at that yellow asterisk up on the top. In 2018, we saw a 14% reduction in the number of fatal falls from one elevation to another. That is statistically significant. It means that we're doing something right to prevent these fatalities. We'd love it to be down 100% because we've had no fatalities. So, you know, we'll take it each step as we go along, but the goal is to reduce that number to the point where we don't have to report any fatal falls in the workplace. But 14% is statistically significant, and I wanted to point that out and wanted to say that we're doing some things that are lowering that down. We'll see how FY19 goes. For those of you who are probably questioning, BLS statistics come out about 2 years behind. So FY19 data, BLS data will be coming out here in December, and we're hopeful that we'll see a further trend leading downward. One of the industries that has experienced quite a bit of fatal falls, as Dr. Earnest mentioned earlier, is in total construction falls was 338 in 2018, which is a reduction. And you can see that total residential falls has been moving up a little bit. Went from 55 in 2014 to 2015, 62, 63, 65, and finally 2018, 67. And you can see that there's a trend there that we're looking to identify, and we're sharing this with you so that we can make some impacts in that area as well. We also have plenty of resources out there from OSHA. We have web pages. Our national stand down web page is osha.gov, Stop Falls Stand Down, and on it you can find all kinds of resources from OSHA and links to our partners, NIOSH and CPWR as well. It is a great way to get information and resources such as training guides, fact sheets, and videos. So please utilize those resources and our partners as well. Now, someone asked in the chat box about how do I get my certificate? I held on, I saw it, I'm looking at the questions that are coming in, and I just wanted to tell you, if you go to our Stop Falls Stand Down, there is a page on there where you can get to your certificate. And once you register it, answer a few questions, you will get a certificate that you can print out on your printer. And it is a way of us recognizing you. It's a thank you from the Department of Labor and from us to say thank you for participating in the stand down. But most importantly, I want to bring up again, not only are we saying thank you, but we're also asking you for information. If you want to share it, it's totally voluntary, but if you want to share information with us about how your stand down went or things we can do to make the next year's stand down even better, let us know, because we're all ears. We want to know. We want you to share your experience and as well as your pictures with us if you're willing. So I'm going to end my presentation here with staying safe during COVID-19. Remember to stay home if you're sick. Wash your hands with soap and water or alcohol-based hand rubs containing at least 60% alcohol. Wear your face covering, continue your social distancing, and avoid sharing equipment if it's not disinfected in between use. And I thank you very much for participating in this fall stand down. Thank you.
Well, all right, it's off to me. Thanks, Scott and Scott. I'm Chris Cain. I'm the Executive Director at CPWR, a campaign partner. And as such, we've established a website that's a one-stop shop for the campaign. It's stopconstructionfalls.com. So this allows us to post everything we can about the campaign and provide resources that are up there now for free for everyone. A lot of resources in Spanish. I saw some of that coming across the chat. We have a great number of our materials and videos translated into Spanish, and they're all available for use now on the campaign website. There's background information and a variety of training resources and other information. The next slide talks about our 2020 stand down plan. A few years ago, we started doing like a 5-day plan. You know, if you needed ideas about what to do as activities related to the stand down, we started developing this. We've modified it so that we're looking to encourage physically distanced activities around the stand down so that people can stay safe from COVID-19. But here we've got a lot of links for materials that may be helpful. Jessica Bunting is my colleague at CPWR, and she just posted in the chat for everybody direct links to some of these materials. And we will be posting more things in the chat for folks to take a look at. The next slide talks about some of our virtual events. Obviously, this is the kickoff. We're doing a webinar to promote the stand down and make everybody think about it this week in particular. But there's a lot of other suggestions on here about our things you can do that are socially distanced, that are safe, that are virtual activities. In addition to live webinars, we have several scheduled throughout the week. So if you check out cpwr.com and Stop Construction Falls, we have a list of other live webinars that are occurring later in the week, along with videos. And also that we started in the podcast world. So we have a podcast that talks a little bit about the background of the prevention campaign as well as the stand down. The next slide talks about stand down promotional tools. So in addition to the videos and the podcasts, we've got a flyer that you can share and a ton of social media posts, including in English and in Spanish, and infographics that you can share, and job site posters that can be blown up. And we try to keep our infographics fresh every year. We update them, and they're all available on stopconstructionfalls.com. More we have on the next slide talking about some of our training resources. In addition to the videos and infographics, we have hard hat stickers that we send out for free every year of the stand down. This year we actually have moved a lot. We've been filling orders that you can order right through stopconstructionfalls.com to get free hard hat stickers, printed hazard alert cards in English and Spanish, toolbox talks, and links to the NIOSH ladder app is an incredible resource that a lot of people find value in, and the aerial lifts simulator is a newer tool from NIOSH to look at safety around aerial lifts. So you can still order. Oh, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. The next slide is about our online ordering form. At CPWR, we do try to get this information out, get printed materials out for free. We can't get them to you this week. We're too backed up, but everybody who ordered before September 7th, September 4th should have their materials this week, but we're still sending it out. And we encourage you to keep ordering. We can send these printed materials out all through the year because this is a campaign that doesn't just happen during this week. We've moved about 200,000 hard hat stickers this year so far, and at least about 30,000 of the different hazard alerts we have, the small printed cards that are available that can be handed out to your workers or distributed to promote thinking about different elements of preventing falls. The next slide also talks about small contractor resources. You know, we saw the slide from Scott where we are still struggling to ensure that small contractors are providing safe workplaces and protecting their workers from fatal falls. The NIOSH and the NORA Construction Sector Council is a group that has a work group on this, and they've helped us develop a new section of our website really aimed at small contractors and to help small contractors develop prevention programs, develop training materials and everything they need to try to implement controls on their job sites so that they can affect what this unfortunate trend continues among small contractors and fatal falls. This entire section is also available in Spanish, so hopefully it's a resource that'll be useful. The next slide talks about some of our evaluation efforts. CPWR, the NIOSH National Construction Center, has been not only working on the campaign since about 2008, we launched it in 2012, and the stand down in 2014. But we've tried to look at trends over time. We've looked at the data from the OSHA certificate issuance. We've shared data between OSHA and CPWR to do an analysis and to try and identify areas where we can improve participation in the annual stand down. We also undertook a social network analysis. So really looking to see what partners in the construction industry have reach. How do they get out to small contractors and other contractors to share information and to engage around falls. And we've also documented success stories. So if you're looking for examples where workers have been saved by the use of fall prevention methods or personal fall arrest systems, we have information on successful stand down activities as well. So the next slide is a brand new slide to our presentation. We just released a new data bulletin. CPWR's data center puts out really great information following trends across all of the construction industry and impacts on a variety of topics, but also of course falls. This data bulletin just went live on Friday. It's available both on Stop Construction Falls and on cpwr.com for download if you want to look at it. Some of the highlights of it were alluded to earlier. We looked at the data from 2017 and 2018 and compared it back across time for the number of fatal falls. And we are seeing a decrease in 2017 and 2018. We're hoping it held true in 2019 and will be true in 2020. But the number of fatal falls as well as the rates are both going down over 2017 and 2018 data. When we see the 2019 data in December, we will be looking at it very quickly to see if this trend is continuing. One area between 2016 and 2018 that improved was the roofing contractors. And you saw the slide that Scott Earnest had earlier about roofing having a really high rate. But the number in residential didn't improve between 2016 and 2018. And that just demonstrates we still have a long way to go. This is in no way the fight is over to keep spreading the word and trying to protect workers in that sector from falls. The last slide I wanted to kind of include in here because, you know, this is a campaign and this is not just a week. We really need to continue to focus on falls all year long. This week does give us an opportunity to pause, focus, do some directed activity, participate, get OSHA certificates for doing it. But we want you to think about what you can do throughout the year to really continue our efforts to address this leading killer of traumatic injuries. We encourage everybody to participate in the stand down week in a safe way, in a physically distanced way, protecting their workers. This is a persistent and deadly hazard, falls on construction, and we need to stay focused on our persistent hazards in this industry, even during this extraordinary pandemic. So with that, my prepared remarks are complete, and now it's time for questions and answers. So Liz, back to you.
Thank you, Chris, and to all the panelists. At this point, it looks like we have some time for questions. We received some in advance during the registration, so I will start with those, and then I'm going to be working with Jessica at CPWR to take some of those that came in through the Q&A box. So I'll start with two that are for OSHA. One of them, the first is, will there be any instruction manuals to prevent falls? So I'll pass that to OSHA first.
Okay, thank you. First of all, we have mentioned throughout this presentation that there's resources on all three of our web pages, all of it consistent with one another. I don't know that you'll find a particular instruction guide, but what you will find is for different sectors within the construction industry, methods that will protect employees that we found to be affected by sector. And so on all three of our web pages, CPWR, NIOSH, and OSHA on our Stop Falls campaign, you will find information that will be very helpful to you in moving forward with protecting workers from fall hazards, from identifying fall hazards to developing a fall prevention plan, to ideas on training the competent person, to fact sheets and all kinds of information that will help you identify, prevent, and train your employees on how to remove fall hazards in the workplace. Anyone else want to add on to that from the panel?
The Susan Howard grantees, this is Tim Irving, Scott. The Susan Howard grantees also have a library of existing material to assist contractors with training needs in falls.
In addition, I forgot to mention this earlier, OSHA consultation assists us in many different ways as well. So to help you in your sector, OSHA consultation is also available out there. And I thank the member of the audience who mentioned that to me, because I agree. OSHA consultation is also a tremendous force multiplier to help us in achieving this goal as well.
If I could add to that, one of the things that we've done at NIOSH is we've developed materials that are available on the website that are like virtual training. And so one of the things we put out about a year ago out of our Division of Safety Research in Morgantown, West Virginia, is a training tool for mass conning work platforms, because we identified that there was a problem there where there were a lot of fall and fatal injuries that are occurring on these devices. And so we developed this system where you can virtually go to the website and it'll walk you through how to do an inspection of a mass conning work platform in the morning before you go up to elevation, because it's important to make sure that you do those safety checks and inspect it thoroughly. And you know, we're trying to do more and more of these web-based training tools that are interactive. And so we feel that that's a very effective way of training construction workers.
And I just wanted to add that we have produced a generic written fall protection and rescue plan that you can go to and use, copy, modify. I just posted a link to it in the chat to everyone. And we have it available for download both in English and Spanish.
All right, thank you all. We'll move on to another question that's similar. What's new in the area of training and PPE preparation? Anything being tested in these areas that is brand new to the industry? I think maybe we'll start with OSHA again on that one, and then if others want to jump in.
Sure. I think in regards to training, there's multiple ways that training can be conducted. And I think certainly as part of this pandemic, a lot of people are doing online training and virtual training right now. So that's certainly something new that all of us, a lot of us are experiencing as far as the opportunities for training, as well as on-site training. And so virtual is one way. I can tell you that I was just with a stakeholder association within the construction industry where they're doing virtual goggle training for driving equipment and working on elevating platforms, mobile elevating work platforms, and I was fascinated by it. So There's a lot of new stuff that's coming out there in the virtual reality field that is just fascinating, and we'll see where that goes. In regards to new equipment that comes out, when we get something new that comes out, we like to share it on our webpage, or we can't necessarily do it in regards to a manufacturer. We have to be careful with that. But when new types of equipment come out, we try to share it through our presentations and our outreach. So I think I'll pass it on to my other fellow teammates on this now.
Sure. Thanks, Scott. I had a number of things I wanted to say about new equipment. One is that at NIOSH, we do an extensive amount of research on all sorts of new products that come out or new technologies. So for example, in the construction industry, we've got a whole new center. Again, this is in our Morgantown, West Virginia facility and based in the Safety Research Division. But there's work on drones and robotics. And so we've got a study currently going on looking at the impact of drones on injuries and preventing injuries and distraction of workers when they're at elevation, if there's a drone in the area. There's also been work that's been done and funded by CPWR on drones. So I think this is an area that's going to continue to be worked upon and could really pay some dividends moving forward. We also support research on various fall-related projects at universities. And so we actually just funded a major study at the University of Pittsburgh on ladder safety. And that's just getting started. We've asked the lead professor for that research at Pittsburgh to participate in our sector council. It's coming up in a couple months and kind of give an update on, talk about what they're planning. And that's also a way to look for partners in the research. And then the other thing I wanted to mention about new technologies or things that are available to prevent falls is that CPWR has a construction solutions webpage. It's very, very good. It's got all sorts of solutions, not only for falls, but really for all hazards in the construction industry. So if you haven't taken a look at that, I highly recommend you do it. Really, really great information there.
All right, so anything?
I'll put a link to that in the chat for folks.
Thank you, Chris. So next we'll move on. We heard a lot about reaching immigrant workers. The question is, what are we going to do about the residential construction industry's failure to protect immigrant workers from fall hazards? How do we better train all residential construction workers and reach the residential construction market to better equip workers with fall protection equipment and resources? So I'll pass this to NIOSH, to Scott first, and then any other panelists that want to address this.
Well, I guess the first thing I would say is that most of the products we put out, we try to make sure that it's available not only in English, but also in Spanish because of the large Hispanic population in the construction industry and also the disproportionate risk. So it's very important to us that we make them available in both of those languages. The other thing is, for a lot of residential construction is small contractors. And so we want to make products available that are not, very lengthy. So we'll do research and we'll publish a scientific paper. But we recognize that small businesses aren't going to read those. So we take those research products and we turn it into infographics or other things that can be easily understood without having to spend a whole lot of time, reading through pages and pages of research. And then the other thing is, I would say we got a really good partnership with the National Association of Home Builders. They're represented on our sector council, and also a couple of organizations that work with them, the Job Site Safety Institute and Builders Mutual. And so we are working with them. They're actually funding some studies that are going on at NIOSH right now. So again, this whole area of residential construction, as well as focusing on Hispanic workers in residential construction, are extremely important to us, and we're continuing to make that a priority.
All right, so we'll move on to the next question. This one is for OSHA. Question is that typically emphasis is on above ground elevations. How are subsurface elevations viewed, such as trench and excavation? I know you did touch on that, but Scott, do you want to add anything more?
Well, what I would say is a fall from one elevation, regardless of whether it's from ground level down into a pit or in this case, an excavation, is still a serious hazard. So what we would say on that is the trenching standard has some requirements for working above a trench or a catwalk above a trench, and whether it's visible or not. And that is within the trenching standard. And there also is something that covers excavations in our fall standards as well. So it is important. Both of them can lead to terrible incidences. As a matter of fact, there was an incident that happened out west this year on a comm tower, where a comm tower was being, the base of the comm tower is usually poured concrete. And in this case, it was a monopole, and it had been bored out to a pretty deep. And before it was filled with concrete, someone fell into that bore pit and was subsequently injured fatally. So I would agree that trenching and excavation or pits or other hazards where you're falling down into something like that are important to talk about and prevent as well.
And can I add to that also, Scott, that the agency priority goal on excavation and training as well, where our compliance assistant specialists are really focusing on the below grade issues and doing a lot of outreach, increasing the outreach the last couple of years.
Okay, great. Thank you, OSHA, for that. Next question that we got in advance was, how can we make the stand downs more effective? What kind of checklists are out there to ensure we're covering all the necessary elements, areas, scope, and to send a clear message to one and all to learn from and prevent such recurrences? So I'll start with CPWR on this one.
All right, thanks, Liz. We have, I think, a number of resources through stopconstructionfalls.com to hold good stand downs, and lots of ideas on how to do that. We also have a daily job site checklist for recognizing and preventing falls. We'll put the link, either me or Jessica will put that in the chat box for everybody to look at. So those are some of the examples of resources available through stopconstructionfalls.com.
Thank you, Chris. And now we'll move into some of the live questions we received today. We have about 22, but we'll try and get to as many as we can. So we'll start here. The first one we received was, can you address the need for dedicated points of tie-off at arm's reach? So I will pass this one to OSHA first.
Damon. Could you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, sure. It's from Manny Carrillo. Says, good morning. Can you please address the need for dedicated points of tie-off at arm's reach?
I'm not sure I understand the question there. At arm's reach. There are many different ways to attach yourself. Obviously, fall restraint or retractable lanyards are out there. So I'm just going to assume that you mean a shortened lanyard to where you have it within arm's reach, and so that you can maybe adjustable lanyard is where I'm going with this. Is that the that would be one thing that I would say in regards to that, so that you can keep the person close to the point of attachment. An adjustable lanyard is one means on that, or a retractable lanyard. Panelists, any other ideas on that? Okay, we'll go on to the next one, I guess.
Yes, sir. So the next, will there be a certificate of participation available? When will the certification of, I think he meant, when will the certificate of participation for the stand down be available on the OSHA website? I think I got that question twice. It looks like it might not be live yet. So it might just be something that, Damon, you can talk to today or tomorrow.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, certificate page. We just checked with the with our web admin folks. There seems to be an issue with it, but they said it'll be live at 2:30. And I will put the link for that into the chat box so everybody can click right on that link.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Next is a question on termite contractors. Will termite contractors be addressed and included for fall protection? We've had to train a company recently who stated they are not required to have fall protection. So maybe I'll pass that back one to OSHA again.
Which particular industry was this?
Termite.
Well, in regards to, I think the question there is probably going into subpart D of our 1910 standards. And there is fall protection requirements there, or there's a multitude of protection requirements under subpart D of 1910. Typically, when I'm thinking of termite inspectors or people that are doing that type of work or applications or whatnot are covered under our general industry standards. So I would say that subpart D of the 1910 standards would cover that. And if they are exposed to falls, be it on roofs while doing inspections or at elevations greater than 4 feet, which is 4 feet is the trigger in subpart D, there is a requirement to protect employees from falls, regardless of whether you're in general industry or working in the construction industry.
Okay, thank you. Another question. Are chin straps required for hard hats? I'll pass that to OSHA.
Tim, Damon, I don't want to hog all the answers here.
We're seeing them more on the sites with a lot of the new climbing style hard hats. But going off memory, the only time I'm thinking that they're required is working near helicopters. That actually requires it. And I could.
In most of
I can double check that.
I think we look at it as a best practice right now.
It's just a good thing to do. Excuse me. We saw a video recently about someone falling and how that hard hat just flew right off their heads and everything. And we know that a chin strap in that particular situation would have been a good thing. But right now, it's more of a best practice rather than a requirement.
If I could just add to that, I wanted to mention that we've got a number of research studies going on, again, in our Division of Safety Research on hard hat performance, hard hat design, and some of that involves looking at the performance of the chin straps. Because as was said earlier, oftentimes hard hats are being worn and they're not using chin straps. But if you have a chin strap on and you have a well-designed hard hat, there is a potential for the hard hat to protect the head and neck of the wearer for lower falls. And there's definitely a big issue with traumatic brain injury in the construction industry. It's got very high numbers when you look from industry to industry. And a lot of that relates to the falls and head protection and then the design of the hats themselves.
Okay, thank you. I think the next one will go to NIOSH or CPWR, who spoke more on the data. Observations have been made, data collected, enumerated as trends. So what are the underlying factual causes generating these trends? I guess some of the root cause. Anyone can answer this one.
That's a great question. And we don't have all the answers for the factual causes underneath every fatality. However, we do have some opportunity to really look at the circumstances surrounding construction worker fatalities through a resource that NIOSH funds, the FACE program. It's the Fatality Assessment and Control Evaluation Program. Did I get that right, Liz and Scott? Yes, okay. So the FACE data, the FACE reports are really rich in narrative language and context. But they don't cover every fatality that occurs. Only certain fatalities are investigated under the FACE program. CPWR actually took the FACE reports from, I think, 1983 up through about 2016, encoded all of those rich narratives into a database, so that we could really analyze and look for trends in the underlying causes of the falls, not just that the fall occurred. We have posted a lot of reports from that analysis, as well as the database that we created on cpwr.com. So you can actually go and analyze the data yourself and look for trends in different construction fatalities. And we have a few peer-reviewed papers on the results of that analysis to look at the underlying causes and to really try to help us zero in not just on the sector a worker worked in who was killed or the type of construction, but what are some of the causes. And really a lot of that work has informed this campaign and how we message and how we structure our activities around the campaign. But if anybody's interested in getting links to those peer-reviewed reports, just shoot me an email, contact me offline. I'd be happy to share whatever we have produced as it relates to really trying to dig under the numbers. I hope that helps answer the question. I don't know if Scott, Earnest has anything else to add.
Well, I mean, the thing I would say is it really underscores the need for research. You know, surveillance research to understand, you know, what portions of the industry are being affected, where we have positive trends. You know, Chris mentioned earlier about the fact that the roofing contractors have had a nice drop. She also referred to the data center report that came out on Friday, analyzing particularly 2016, 2017, 2018. So if you haven't taken a look at that, I would suggest go to CPWR's website and take a look at that report, and that provides, you know, more insight into you know, what exactly is happening there. And then also, you know, a shout out for the science blog that we did a week or so ago. There was a graph I showed in there with the drop in total number of fatalities during that time period, but also the drop in the rates. And in addition to that, we've got a breakdown in the total number for different subsectors during that time period as well. And so there was some significant drops for falls from scaffolding. There was drops again from roofing, even significant reductions in that time period on falls from ladders. So again, I think it really underscores the need for research to continue to do data mining, to better understand what's happening and try to figure out why.
Yeah, and I just wanted to just punch in there too. You know, we've done some technical webinars with really high-level experts on fall protection that are all linked through stopconstructionfalls.com, and we have some coming up later this week to dive into some of the more technical issues. Scott, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just real quick. OSHA also, you know, we have lagging indicators, obviously, from our OSHA information system that'll show you where incidents, at least OSHA has been involved in. But we've also done a push on leading indicators. And if you haven't looked at our leading indicators, we recently had a stakeholder meeting with through our Directorate of Standards and Guidance. And if you go to their webpage within OSHA, you will find that we are working on leading indicators now that might be helpful for a variety of hazards. So I just wanted to point that out as well. And obviously the lagging indicators are the things that we make available when we attend these presentations, but we are working on getting more active on the leading indicators as well.
All right, so I'm gonna close out the webinar with this last question from Juan Lopez Escobar, because I think it's really important. And the question is, what are the incentives besides worker safety for small contractors to participate in more safety trainings, which is ultimately who we're trying to reach? So I'll let the panelists provide an answer and maybe closing remarks to incentivize those hard to reach smaller contractors on why they should participate.
You want me to lead off?
Sure.
Okay, I'll take it. First of all, the last thing that any employer wants is to have somebody injured or killed on their job site, regardless of whether it's a fall, an amputation, regardless of the hazard. Nobody wants to have employees hurt or killed on the job. So the incentive is to make sure that you evaluate the workplace and train your employees so that you can avoid these types of preventable injuries and illnesses. And that in itself should be incentive enough, but we realize that, there are situations where, it may not be enough. But what I would say is, having been in this business, the safety business for 30 years now, and over 20 of it with OSHA, on 25, I will say that many times I visited workplaces as a compliance officer that said, how could this happen? And when you lay back in the investigation and you look at the different layers of the scenarios that led to the incident, you can see very clearly where the mistakes were made. And so, and they weren't intentional. In some cases, they might have been. We have a classification for that. It's willful. But in most of the cases, the vast majority of them were not intentional. So what I would say is incentive is to get educated and get informed on these hazards and how to prevent them and mitigate them in the workplace. And if you're in the construction industry, I think you've gotten plenty of information from all of us on how important evaluating falls and preventing unnecessary and preventable tragedies are in the construction industry related to falls. Other panel?
If I could add to that, I just want to say that at NIOSH, we've done a fair amount of work looking at return on investment for safety. And there's a number of examples on our website about how important it is to incorporate safety into really all that we do, because there is an economic case that can be made. But beyond the economics of it, it's really just an issue of doing the right thing. I mean, anytime there's a fall and a serious injury or fatality, I mean, it's just a terrible tragedy that affects not only the workforce, the business, but the family. It's really an issue of just doing the right thing. And many of these things are completely preventable. And, with some very simple controls or precautions that are put in place, it can really make a huge difference for the workers and for the business themselves.
So I also have a few thoughts on this. I mean, it's not just about falls, it's about providing a safe workplace. And a lot of times very small contractors employ their family members. And while safety may not be the first thing on the business owner's mind, because the business owner is also trying to obtain work, trying to manage work, trying to do work him or herself, it's about providing leadership and understanding that, these are employees who, under the OSHA Act, you're responsible for providing a safe workplace for, but also it's about fostering good communication, fostering leadership, and maintaining your workforce. And while we're uncertain how the economy is going to go in the future, this boom economy we've had in the most recent years has meant that it's hard to get good workers to come work in construction and for small firms. So if there's an incentive that could be thought about, it would be about, demonstrating leadership, demonstrating good communication, demonstrating that you care about the workforce, maintaining the workers' well-being, and just providing a good place to work. So I'm hoping that resonates with some people. It may not, but those are my thoughts on ways to incentivize things other than the threat of OSHA inspection, which is a rare occurrence in a lot of small places of employment.
Okay, so at this point, I want to thank all of our presenters and of course everybody who attended. I hope you're inspired to join in and host your own stand down event this week. And this now concludes our kickoff. So thank you all for joining. Best of luck this week.